Hi, folks. Welcome back to the Fireside Chat here on the Politics for Plebeians channel, also known as Philosophy for Philistines, with your host, Bill Reimer. I've got a doozy today. Scary, as last night's was, in honor of Halloween. So here are my thoughts. Almost certainly, we are moving into an age of totalitarian dictatorships, an age in which freedom of thought will be at first a deadly sin and later on a meaningless abstraction. The autonomous individual is going to be stamped out of existence. That's a quote from George Orwell from his book Inside the Whale. In a Reuters video dated October the 31st, 2022, that's today, entitled Food Supplies at Risk as Russia Quits Grain Deal, and I provide the link for that video here, we find more evidence that failed foreign policies, supply chain mismanagement, an attack on farming due to insane green energy initiatives are the deliberate courses of action engaged in by today's world leaders that are resulting in food shortages likely to lead to starvation and famine. The following has come to accurately describe life in the Western world today. The official ideology abounds with contradictions, even where there is no practical reason for them. These contradictions are not accidental. And that's again by George Orwell from his novel 1984. In that novel, Orwell wrote about memory holing, the process by which memories which do not serve the official narrative are made to disappear as though they had never happened. But I remember, and for my part, will not allow us to forget. So with apologies to Neil Oliver, permit me to paraphrase his succinct and rather brutally honest summary of our current situation, where our political class, senior bureaucrats, and their unelected globalist handlers are in fact not only creating the crises that we face, but are doing so deliberately to transfer wealth into their hands. Here I paraphrase Neil. I have questions about the apparently misfiring memories of those utterly desperate to pretend the last 2 years never happened, or if they did happen, that they happened altogether differently than I remember. George Orwell wrote about memory holing in his novel 1984, the process by which information that no longer helps the official narrative is made to disappear as if it had never existed. Just as, for instance, they're trying to tell us now that no one ever said the so-called vaccines would prevent the spread of COVID from person to person. But they damn well did say that over and over again. That was the entire basis for the granny-killing, selfish COVID abuse directed at those of us who never did and never will submit to those jabs, only to claim now that such claims were never made. This is the most blatant and shameless of lies, damned lies, and yet it's pushed on us now by politicians, medical professionals, and mainstream media alike. It can only be a matter of time, presumably, when the number of vaccine dead and injured simply get too terrifyingly big to ignore before the same characters will be saying the jabs were voluntary anyway, and that it was always and only a matter of personal choice whether you took them or not, so don't come crying to me, they'll say in unison. In Orwell's novel of a dystopian future, the totalitarian government of Oceania was constantly at war with one of the other two totalitarian superpowers that dominated the world, Eurasia and East Asia. It wasn't ever about winning or ending the war, but rather maintaining a constant state of war in order to keep the citizens under control. Every citizen had to memory hole what each knew to be true, and just accept the latest version of reality. Orwell called this doublethink. End paraphrase of this quote, and it may be heard at the following link, and I provide that in my blog. The purpose of this all-encompassing program of psychological warfare is to bewilder the mind of the average citizen, people like you and me. For when the citizen is bombarded with contradictions and lies and lives in what Orwell called that shifting phantasmagoric world in which black may be white, tomorrow and yesterday's weather can be changed by decree, he or she eventually ceases to know what to think or even how to think. The distinction between up and down, fact and fiction, truth and falsity is not only blurred, but loses significance. The belief in objective truth disappears, and the average citizen becomes completely dependent on authority figures to feed him ideas, and thus is ready to assent to lies and to believe the most absurd things, so long as those in the political class deem it to be true. And that is exactly what life has become under Justin Trudeau, where the totalitarian state sets up questionable dogmas and it alters them from day to day. It needs the dogmas because it needs absolute obedience from its subjects, but it cannot avoid the changes which are dictated by the needs of power politics. And that past quote is again by Orwell in his novel Literature and Totalitarianism. Wasn't that fun? Obviously not. I take no pleasure in creating these podcasts, but I am compelled to do so. Why? Because I'm reminded of John chapter 8, verse 36. And from the King James Version I quote, "If the Son therefore shall make you free, you shall be free indeed." It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Do not submit yourselves again to a yoke of bondage. Our oligarchical class of faux moralizing besserwissers do not wish to save the planet. They wish to offer you as sacrifice to their false gods. They are idolaters, so have nothing to do with their idolatry. I think it is time we offer the truth as sacred sacrifices to defeat the false god of lies these oligarchs serve by exposing at every possible opportunity the nature of their lies and the perversity of those who tell them. So there are some things to think and pray about on this very scary Halloween. God bless you all. Keep your kids safe tonight. Don't eat candy that, rots your teeth. Have a lovely Halloween.